Greetings, the Lord be with you. The sermon is for Sunday, September 6th, 2020, and our text is Psalm 62. Psalm 62 records the progress of a wrestling match of a sort. Wrestling match between doubt and confidence in the spirit of a person of faith, who is striving to retain a grip on the trustworthiness of God, even though this person is about to collapse under the withering attack of enemies. Listen to Psalm 62. Truly, my soul finds rest in God. My salvation comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken. How long will you assault me? Would all of you throw me down this leaning wall, this tottering fence? Surely they intend to topple me from my lofty place. They take delight in lies. With their mouths they bless, but in their hearts they curse. Yes, my soul finds rest in God. My hope comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock, my refuge. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. Surely the lowborn are but a breath, the highborn are but a lie. If weighed on a balance, they are nothing. Together they are only a breath. Do not trust in extortion, or put vain hope in stolen goods. Though your riches increase, do not set your heart on them. One thing God has spoken, two things I have heard. Power belongs to you, O God, and with you, Lord, is unfailing love. And you reward everyone according to what they have done. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. When trouble threatens on all sides, any kind of trouble, all kinds of trouble, but when trouble threatens, confidence begins to shake and doubt begins to rise up. And people, even the very best people in our lives, are not strong enough to hold us up. And possessions, well, they are an unreliable ally. We need God. We need to trust in God. We need to trust that God's love endures forever, and trustworthiness is essential to God's character. But when trouble threatens, confidence shakes and doubt rises up. Trust is a powerful thing. Trust is a powerful adhesive that makes relationships more than acquaintance and more than contract. Trust is a big part of what makes spouses in that unique relationship of two becoming one. Trust is what holds parents and children together in a relationship that is positive and powerful. Trust is the same in friendships. besides being a powerful adhesive, trust is a powerful fuel. Or catalyst, however you want to look at it. Trust makes possible incredible feats of personal vulnerability and self-giving. Trust is what enables us, empowers us to really be real with one another, to show what is hidden deep inside. Trust is what empowers us to forgive and to take risks in that minefield, the potential minefield of relationships. And trust is the glue that enables relationships to endure and the energy that enables relationships to go deep. Trust is terrifically powerful. Trust makes rest possible. Trust that we can let down our guard, that at least for a little while we're safe. Somebody's looking out for us, so we can rest. And trust makes hope possible. That trust that we'll be okay, that no matter what happens tomorrow, at least we're not alone, and there's more going on that is good than we can see. Trust is also really fragile. Trust is vulnerable to misunderstanding, vulnerable to betrayal. Trust can be eroded by insecurity within and third-party attacks from without. Check the news any day. There's always examples of big betrayals, of flattering politicians and abusive parents and murderous friends and doctors that don't stick with their vow to do no harm. And some of us have in our lives experienced big betrayals. Unfaithfulness, abuse, being taken advantage of in powerful ways, lied to in big ways with huge consequences. Some of us have experienced big betrayals, and all of us, I don't think anyone is immune, all of us have experienced sort of the small and medium betrayals, broken promises and violated boundaries and shirked responsibilities and shattered expectations. It's just kind of part of living as broken human beings in a broken world. And those misunderstandings that so often play into the erosion of trust are the plague of imperfect communication and unstated assumptions and unrecognized wounds. It's so easy to misunderstand and to be misunderstood. It's so easy to cause offense, even when that might be the very thing that we're trying so hard not to do. Misunderstandings happen easy. And trust erodes. And relationships either break or go into kind of a shallow self-protection mode. We're not quite as real. Keep a little bit more hidden. It's a little harder to forgive. And risks tend to be avoided. Now, when our ability to trust is basically in good repair, then only the relationships that are directly impacted by that betrayal or that misunderstanding or whatever it is that happened, only that those relationships directly impacted really bear the brunt of that broken trust. And we fall back on other relationships in which we still have confidence. The whole idea of trust is not necessarily injured, just trust in that one particular relationship. But if trust is violated often enough, and in ways that are big enough. If the persons that we most need to trust, the persons that we rely on to be trustworthy, people like parents, or maybe spouses, best friends, persons in authority, when those people betray our trust repeatedly and in terrible ways, then our ability to trust falls into disrepair. It isn't just about trusting that person anymore. It's about the whole idea of trust. And all of our relationships are affected. And our ability to form relationships is affected. I have, over the years, had lots of opportunity to spend time in conversation with people who have experienced big trauma. Sometimes as children, sometimes as adults, maybe in war, maybe in healthcare, especially as little children dealing with the difficulties and the confusion and the scariness of healthcare situations. And people who have experienced abusive situations in a lot of different contexts. One of the really devastating long-term impacts of those types of great big traumas can be the breakdown, not just in the willingness, but even in just the ability to trust anybody, ever. And nothing cuts so deep as betrayal or even perceived betrayal by someone that we once trusted. You know, when an enemy or even a casual acquaintance breaks a promise or crosses a boundary or shirks a responsibility or falls short of an expectation, it hurts. It might make us angry. But usually it doesn't undo us from the inside out. But if that same thing is done by somebody that we trusted, somebody that we need to trust, like a friend, a close friend, a parent, somebody in authority, somebody who's supposed to be looking out for us, protecting us, then there's hurt, but there's more than hurt. And there's anger, but there's more than anger. That's when it can really undo us. There can be kind of this disintegration in our internal sense of well-being and worth. Trust is a powerful thing and fragile. And so when that happens, when trust and the ability to trust takes such a beating, it becomes very difficult to find rest because we just don't really ever feel safe. We don't really ever feel like somebody's looking out for us. And then hopelessness is often not far behind because it feels like we're alone. And it's hard to see the good. We see the bad all around us. And for persons of faith, there's an added dynamic in all of this. It has to do with God, our relationship with God, God's relationship with us, at least as we perceive Him. Now, in the very best possible situation, in the best case scenario, our relationship with God is so deep, it's so strong, our trust in God and our confidence in God's trustworthiness are so deep and so strong that nothing can shake us. That in that best case scenario, then come what may, the words of Psalm 42, not 62, but the Psalm 42 are our words. God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. Best case scenario, bring it on. God is trustworthy and I will not fear. In that best case scenario, then we can rest. Rest is still possible even when the earth is shaking. We can let down our guard because we know that we're safe. We know that somebody's looking out for us. Somebody who is trustworthy. And in that best case scenario, we can hope. Even when all we see around us are raging waters and crumbling mountains and no sign of light in the darkness. Again, bring it on. I still have hope because I know that I'm not alone. And I know that there's more going on that's good, even if I can't see it. But here's the thing. Really, not very many of us live in that best case scenario all the time, every day. Most of us, at least sometimes, and sometimes more often than not, are more like the writer of Psalm 62 than Psalm 42. We say we trust God. We want to trust God. But it's hard. It's hard to hold on to that when we experience the very real effects of the brokenness of this world, the very real ways that enemies, acquaintances, sometimes even friends, can break promises or violate boundaries or shirk responsibilities or shatter expectations, cause our world to shake. At least sometimes. We kind of got to talk ourselves into trusting God when the storm's raging and the light is nowhere to be found. So I want to invite you to listen again to the words of Psalm 62, breaking it down just a little bit. The first thing the writer does is declare what he so much wants to believe is true. He starts out with this declaration that God is trustworthy. Truly, my soul finds rest in God. My salvation comes from him. Truly, he is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will never be shaken. It sounds a little bit like the way that Psalm 42 begins, but then the tenor changes a little bit, and you get the sense that the psalmist here is writing what they want to hold on to, the trust that they want to have, but is right now facing some of that challenge because their world is shaking. So the next few verses kind of describe that current reality of the storms raging, the trouble coming, the enemies attacking. How long will you assault me? Would all of you throw me down this leaning wall, this tottering fence? Surely they intend to topple me from my lofty place. They take delight in lies. With their mouths they bless, but in their hearts they curse. And the psalmist describes that situation of feeling vulnerable, of feeling about to fall over, to crumble, to be defeated. The shakiness that comes with trouble. But then the psalmist moves again back to that declaration of trust. Wrestling back and forth. Trust and doubt. Confidence and shakiness. Yes, my soul, find rest in God. Come on, soul, you can do it. Find rest in God. My hope comes from him. He is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. My salvation, my honor depend on God. He's my mighty rock. He's my refuge. And then the psalmist kind of reminds himself that there's more going on than he can see. More good going on beyond just the trouble that he's experiencing. Surely the lowborn are but a breath, the highborn are but alive. Weighed on a balance, they are nothing. Together they are only a breath. Do not trust in extortion or put vain hope in stolen goods. Though your riches increase, do not set your heart on them. He completes the cycle. It's like the wrestling match is over and the psalmist comes down on the side of confidence. One thing God has spoken, two things I have heard. Power belongs to you, God, and with you, Lord, is unfailing love. For many of us, this cycle of confidence, battling with distraction and doubt is real. There's times when we have that wrestling match, trusting in God, wanting to trust in God, feeling that trust being shaken. And when that happens, it's not evidence of absence of faith. It's not about weakness of will. It's just kind of a reflection of the storminess of this world and the fragility of trust. But every time we engage in that wrestling match, every iteration of that seesaw battle, we end up back on the side of confidence in God, confidence in the trustworthiness of God. And we are drawn deeper into God's embrace. And that side of trust, that piece of trust that makes it that powerful, adhesive, that gets a chance to grip us even more, so that we can find ourselves held just a bit more securely in those everlasting arms, even when the earth shakes. There's value even in that struggle, because each iteration, when it takes us back into God's arms, trust is a bit deeper and a tiny bit less vulnerable. And trust fuels us to be real with God, to not hide or try to hide from God. And then we are more able to be real with ourselves and real with other people. More able to see the light of God's goodness even when it's masked by the darkness of the broken world. And we're just a bit more equipped to forgive even when it's hard, and to take risks in relationships, not just with God, but with other people. Jesus was executed on the authority of an oppressive foreign government, but he was arrested on trumped-up charges by leaders within his own people. And he was betrayed for a few coins by a close friend. Judas's kiss pierced his soul, just as the executioner's nails pierced his hands. Jesus knows what it is to be cut to the quick by the betrayal of trust. And yet, as Jesus hung on the cross, approaching his last breath, he said, "Into your hands I commit my spirit." It's a statement of trust and a vision of the rest that trust makes possible. And then on the third day, he was raised to new life. This manifestation of trust vindicated and hope given new birth. Trust makes rest possible because we can let down our guard, at least for a little while, because we feel safe, feel like somebody's looking out for us. And trust makes hope possible because we're going to be okay. No matter what happens, we're not alone, and there's more going on that's good than we can see. But trust doesn't come cheap. Still, it's worth the price, because God's love does endure forever. And trustworthiness is essential to God's character. May the peace of God guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Bless you all.